An old photograph was found in an old chest, and at first glance it seemed like just an ordinary memory from the Civil War era. But when experts cleaned and scanned it, an impossible scene was revealed. Abraham Lincoln was standing between General Grant and Meade in a full-color photograph that would have been impossible to take in the 1860s. How did the photo have color before color photography was invented? And who is the mysterious man standing between Lincoln and Grant? A face that can't be identified in any historical records. This photograph, according to those who have seen it, could change our understanding of American history. This is not just a photograph, but a sign of a secret connection, a mission hidden for more than 100 years, and a message that has shaken historians around the world. In this video, we will revisit the photograph that intrigued the whole world and the hidden secret it carries. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. It's a big help for us content creators. Thank you. Let's get started. Photo that shouldn't exist. It all started with an old chest with rusted iron, a torn belt, and thick dust that seemed like it hadn't been opened for decades. In the middle of a hot afternoon, while Claire Donovan was cleaning their family's old house, she found something that would change the perspective of historians all over America. At first, she thought they were just old belongings. Old railway documents, lace gloves, faded old letters, and some buttons dating back to the Civil War era. But when she noticed a thick photo album covered in dust, she stopped. As Claire looked through the photos one by one, most were pale and black and white. They were typical pictures of soldiers and families from the 1800s. But at the very last part of the album, there was a photo wrapped in wax paper, and that's where the mystery began. When she opened it, she stopped breathing for a moment. In front of her was Abraham Lincoln himself, very clear, wearing a black coat and his famous top hat. Beside him was Ulysses S. Grant and other well-known Union Army officials. But that wasn't what shook Claire's mind. The photo was in color. Yes, it was colorful. The blue uniforms, brown boots, and sunlight shining on Lincoln's clothes stood out. But there was one big problem. That was impossible in 1865 because color photography technology didn't exist then. He got nervous. His question was, how could this possibly be true? He brought the photo to Professor George Kramer, an expert in Civil War photography. When Kramer saw the photo, he turned pale. "You need to tell me exactly where you got this," he said. After hearing the story, he looked at the photo paper and suddenly whispered, "This isn't an ordinary print. This is album and silver stock. It was only used in the 1860s. Claire stopped. "So, is it fake?" Kramer shook his head and in a low voice said, "No, that's what's scary. This is real." They immediately brought the photo to New York Historic to have it examined. There, they used high-resolution scanners and forensic imaging tools. Experts discovered that the color is actually within the photo itself and was not painted on. The process is almost identical to Kodachrome, but it was invented half a century later. The scientists couldn't believe it. The pigments used were organic, coming from natural dyes that weren't used in photography at that time. This means that someone was able to create a color photo at a time when it was supposed to be impossible. But while the experts were busy analyzing the technology, Claire noticed something even more unusual. There was a person standing between Lincoln and Grant, a man who was not recorded in history. He wasn't an official, had no rank, and was not identified in any Civil War records. A mysterious face that would reveal even deeper secrets in the next part of the story. The man in the middle. While everyone was busy analyzing the colors and details of the photo, there was one thing Claire couldn't get out of her mind. The man standing between Abraham Lincoln and General Ulysses S. Grant. He didn't look like a military officer. He had no rank, no sword or medals. He just stood there quietly with a straight posture and a peculiar expression. It was as if he knew more than the people with him in the picture. As Claire stared at his face, she suddenly remembered something. She had seen that face before. Not in a history book, but in an old family photo. She quickly opened her phone and searched for the scanned picture. A man standing next to the barn, holding a dog's head. The photo was taken in 1912. He was old, had a mustache, and was noticeably heavier. But Joe's shape, ear curve, and drooping eyebrow were the same. It was him. The man standing between Lincoln and Grant was none other than his great-great-grandfather, William Donovan. Claire gasped. "That's him, I'm sure," she whispered. Professor Kramer paused and stared ahead. "What did you say?" Claire showed the photo, and the professor fell silent for a moment as he looked at it. He had no record of him in any Civil War documents. He said quietly, "No official rank, no service record." But Claire was determined. She opened the computer and began to search old military archives. Within minutes, she found the name Donovan, William Medic Regiment, 104th New York Infantry. Missing in action since April 6, 1865. The room was quiet until Kramer broke the silence. "April 6, he said softly, 3 days before General Lee surrendered." Claire looked at the photo. If he went missing on April 6, how could he be seen in a picture with Lincoln on April 9? Kramer didn't answer anymore. He was already busy searching for new information on his laptop. "There is no official photo of Lincoln at Appomattox," he said eventually. "They're all just drawings and sketches." The terrifying possibility slowly crept into Claire's mind that the photo was not an accident. If the date is real, if the color is real, and if that person is real, maybe her ancestor played a role that was deliberately hidden from history. And why did William Donovan order in a letter when he was already old? "If ever you find a photograph with a chair, burn it. It was never meant to be kept." Why does the photograph need to be burned? What needs to be hidden? While the investigation continued, experts noticed that it seemed like there was a strange force surrounding that man. He didn't disappear. He was hidden. He wasn't forgotten. He was deliberately erased. And now, after more than a century, his presence is reappearing, bringing with him the question that history has long avoided. Why was he there? As the investigation goes deeper, a part of history that has long been covered by silence is slowly being revealed. A secret link to Abraham Lincoln never recorded in books seemed impossible to Professor Kramer at first. But when he found a rare document from the War Department in 1865, everything changed. There was only one line written in the memo. "Move to shadow post per Al's request, not to be logged." Claire looked up. "Al? Who is Al?" Kramer was silent before answering. That was Lincoln's nickname in secret communications. At that moment, they realized it might be true, that there was a secret unit formed by Lincoln himself in the final days of the war. It wasn't an official group, though. They had no rank, no badge, and no name on record. They were just called the Shadow Post. They were said to be the Silent Watchers, the people tasked to protect the sensitive operations of the government and the president himself. And one of them, according to all indications, was William Donovan. While Kramer was examining the photo, the forensic expert Elsa noticed something unusual about Donovan's uniform. Under the fold of his collar, there was a small embroidered letter. Presidential Escort Committee. Kramer looked at it closely. "Presidential Escort Committee," he whispered. Elsa was surprised. "But there's no such official unit." Kramer nodded. "Yes, because it's not really official. There are diaries from Lincoln's aides that say, near the end of the war, he no longer fully trusted his cabinet. So he formed his own secret group, people who would watch over him personally, not as soldiers, but as shadow protectors." As Claire looked at that embroidery, she realized that her ancestor was not just an ordinary medic. He was part of Lincoln's deepest secret. And that's when they looked at the photo again. Why was there an empty chair next to Lincoln? Why was Donovan seated in the middle? It seemed prepared in case something unexpected happened. That wasn't just an ordinary chair. For Kramer, it was a sign of warning. a silent hint that danger was coming. And if their suspicions were correct, William Donovan was not just a witness to history, but a guardian in the midst of the storm. But there was still one thing they hadn't discovered. Beneath his uniform, there was a hidden message that would stitch together the most delicate and terrifying secret of all. The message that changed everything. While experts continued to examine the mysterious photo of Abraham Lincoln and the person standing between them, a new discovery completely shook everyone who witnessed it. If before it was all just speculation, now they have evidence, and it's even more terrifying than expected. It all started with a simple observation by Elsa, the forensic imaging expert. While re-examining William Donovan's uniform, using the spectral scanner, she noticed something unusual on the fabric. "Wait a minute," she said. "It looks like there's still a stitch here under the badge." At first they thought it was just a simple tear or an old stitch. But when Elsa zoomed in on the image, a clear pattern of letters appeared, words sewn directly into the fabric with deliberate thread. They enhanced the image further, and that's when they saw the words, almost hidden inside the uniform. Target verified. Stand until April 14. The whole room was silent. April 14th, 1865 was the night President Abraham Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater. Claire stopped, almost out of breath. "That means she knows," she whispered, but no one answered. Professor Kramer was bent over the monitor, seemingly in disbelief. There was no doubt the message was not just a simple sign. It was an order. The phrase, "target verified," was clearly a military term, and "stand until" indicated an assignment with a set time. This means William Donovan was assigned to stand guard or be on duty during an operation until the very night of Lincoln's assassination. "This wasn't like a normal duty," said Mason, the paper conservator. "It was more like a mission or a warning." Elsa nodded. If so, she might have known about the threat before it occurred. As they processed that idea, a darker possibility slowly emerged. What if Donovan had tried to stop the attack? But was it too late? Or even worse, what if he himself was silenced before he could do anything? Suddenly, Claire remembered her grandfather's old letter, Donovan's own warning. "If you ever find a photograph with the chair, burn it. It was never meant to be kept." Now it's clear to her why. That photograph was not just proof of a moment in history. It was evidence that indicated foreknowledge, a message from someone who knew about the coming tragedy, and perhaps a secret he could never save. And the most chilling part, according to the War Department's records, Donovan was transferred to what was called a shadow post on April 6, 1865, 3 days before General Lee's surrender, and 3 days before the photograph was taken. That means he was still alive, on active duty, and part of Lincoln's own security detail up until April 14, the night of his death. "If that's the case," Claire whispered, "he should have stopped it." But no one responded. The heavy silence spoke for them all. Maybe Donovan tried, but he didn't make it in time. Or maybe there was a force bigger than him, a system that chose to hide the truth rather than save one of its most precious. The most important person in history. Now all that's left is an old photograph, a uniform with a hidden message, and a mystery that completely changed everyone's perspective about the explosion of secrets beneath history. The technology that shouldn't be. After the terrifying message sewn into William Donovan's uniform was discovered, everyone thought the mystery was over. It wasn't over. The team was still examining the photograph. Elsa, the forensic imaging expert, noticed something even more unbelievable: the photograph itself. From the very beginning, they knew there was something strange about it. It was too clear, too colorful, and seemed more modern compared to any photograph from the Civil War era. During that time, all photographs were in black and white. Color photography hadn't been invented yet in the 1860s, and according to records, the idea of colored images was just starting to emerge. Nearly 30 years later, how can there be a full-color photo of Abraham Lincoln from 1865? So Elsa decided to scan the photo again, but this time more thoroughly. She personally examined the pigments and chemical structure of the image. When she finished the analysis, she stopped. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. "It's not hand-tinted," she said. "It wasn't painted or colored after it was taken. The pigments themselves were already mixed into the emulsion. It means the color was already in the development process itself. Everyone was silent. That can't happen." Mason, the paper conservator, interjected that the photographic plates in the 1860s weren't made to hold chromogenic dyes. Elsa nodded. "That's impossible." "I know, but here it is. The color is vivid, alive, and still hasn't faded." She showed the complete breakdown of the analysis. The photograph contains gum arabic, animal-based binding agents, and organic pigments like beetroot and indigo. Both were used for coloring fabric in the 19th century. But instead of being used on fabric, these were combined with light-sensitive oil compounds that, when exposed to the right light, produce natural color. This was an experimental process. It was too complicated for ordinary people, and it seemed to be made for a special purpose only. Claire looked quietly at the screen. "This isn't just an ordinary picture," she said. "It's a prototype." Professor Kramer nodded. "And it's possibly made under Lincoln's secret orders himself." When Elsa dug deeper into the old archives, she found a journal entry from 1866. It belonged to the famous photographer Timothy O'Sullivan, one of the official photographers of the Civil War. It was written there, the president requested one unique chromatic plate for his legacy image. No demonstration, private development only. Kramer stared at the wall. "If this is correct," he said, "Lincoln himself ordered the creation of the very first color photograph. Not for the public, but for his own purpose. This wasn't a photograph for propaganda or as a memento of the war. It was a time capsule, a deliberately created document that would hide messages, technology, and clues that might only be understood by future generations. And if that's the case, who is more deserving to keep it? None other than William Donovan, the man absent from official records, but always central to key moments in history. Maybe he wasn't just Lincoln's guardian. Perhaps he was also the bearer of a secret hidden within the very photograph itself. But one question remains. If all of this was truly a secret, why didn't he destroy the photograph? Why did he keep it? And why did he instruct his family to burn it if it was ever found? Everything has an answer, and Claire found the answer a few days after that. A secret hidden at the very bottom of the old photo album, a piece of paper with only one name signed on it. The letter from Claire Donovan has arrived. It's the point where she knows this is no longer just an old photograph. This is no longer a simple story of a soldier. This is a secret chapter in American history and is directly connected to Abraham Lincoln. As Claire was re-examining the old letter album where the strange photograph was kept, she noticed a small detail she hadn't paid attention to before. An old envelope, almost torn from age, was folded behind the lining of the album. No address, no stamp. There was also no signature from the sender. Only one word was written on the front: to William. He opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, a thin yellowed piece of paper that was carefully preserved. When Professor Kramer read the contents, both were stunned. Written there was, "My dearest William, if nothing else came out of this war, it tells us that truth is seldom of great interest to those who need it the most. To stand visible among those who do. Whatever we do with peace will challenge us far more than anything we did during the war. Thus, stand where they don't expect you. Watch who you need to. And if history gives you a miss, allow it to. I won't." After they read it, silence prevailed. No surname or signature, but the tone and words say enough. The weight in every line and the writing style leave no doubt. The one who wrote the letter was Abraham Lincoln himself. Kramer read it quietly. This wasn't just a letter. It was a direct order. Suddenly, everything made sense. William Donovan's disappearance from the military records, his mysterious presence in the photograph, and the order given to his family to burn the picture. He wasn't just missing in action. He was erased from history, intentionally. In the letter, Lincoln's order was clear. If history ever forgets you, let it. You don't need to be recognized. Do your duty. As Claire reads the letter, it's as if she can hear Lincoln's voice himself. Sad, but determined. There's a sense of truth and sacrifice. Now, everything is clear. William Donovan isn't an ordinary soldier. He isn't missing either. He's a man who was deliberately erased from the records to hide a mission that only he knows about. Kramer stared at the letter and said, "This is a final directive." This proves that Donovan was left in the shadows, not as a traitor, but as a guardian of the truth. And that's also when they understood why Donovan's family was told from the very beginning to never reveal the photograph. Not because it was a lie, but because it was a truth that should never be revealed. So the question is, if Lincoln trusted Donovan that much, why did history make sure he was forgotten? Legacy buried in silence. When news first spread about a mysterious photograph from the Civil War, a colored photo showing a man standing right next to Abraham Lincoln, the historians were confused. Not only because it was impossible to have color photography in the 1860s, but also because that photograph opened up a story that history would have preferred to keep closed. For Claire Donovan, everything was clear. The truth should not remain buried. So even though several companies and major institutions tried to buy the photograph, from television networks to private collectors, she refused them all. As she said, it's not about the money. This shouldn't be used for profit. The photograph wasn't made for headlines or clickbait documentaries. This is a promise passed down through generations, quietly kept and finally brought back to life. Instead of selling it, Claire partnered with the New York Historical Society to create a remarkable exhibit. This isn't about the war or Lincoln, but about someone nearly erased from history. A soldier who stood in the midst of all the danger and remained silent, William Donovan. They named the exhibit "The Man Who Stood Anyway." In the middle of the room is a replica of the photograph, large, clear, and illuminated by a soft light from behind. There, every visitor can see in detail the fatigue in Lincoln's eyes, the dust on the soldier's boots, the empty chair, and the man in the middle, Donovan, the man chosen by Lincoln but forgotten by history. Beside it is a complete timeline of his life on display. From the misspelling of his name in military records to his mysterious disappearance on April 6, 1865, to the secret memo from the Shadow Post and the letter signed by Al, written by Abraham Lincoln himself, and on the wall above the picture hangs the very copy of his letter, a single line that represents the spirit of it all. Some men fight with swords, others with silence, and that was the legacy of William Donovan. Not as a war hero, not as an official written in the books, but as a bearer of secrets. A man who quietly watched as history moved forward without him being seen. During the first week of the exhibit, Claire just stood at the side, watching the visitors, students, veterans, and tourists. Most of them had only heard the name William Donovan for the first time, but when they saw the photo, they fell silent. Some of them read the letter twice. Others just stared for a long time, as if trying to understand the weight of the silence between the lines. Claire said, "I don't need him to be called a hero. All I want is to see him." And that was enough. Despite everything, the secret order, the mysterious message on his uniform, and the set date of April 14, Donovan did exactly what Lincoln told him. Stand where they don't expect you. He stood, he watched, and when the world forgot him, he did not appeal. He quietly disappeared, carrying a story that only time could bring back, and now a portrait of renewed words or him. A portrait, a missing soldier, and a message too dangerous for history to remember. If you were to discover such evidence, something that could change history itself, what would you do? Would you hide it, or would you share it publicly?